All right. Hey, everyone. Sorry about the delay there on the start, but thanks for joining us for another edition of Playwell Live. First of all, a day late, but happy Mother's Day to all you awesome Lego moms out there. You rock. Keep it up. All right. So welcome back. And last week we did our May the 4th challenge, right? And, I just decided there was too much good material to only do 1 week of that. So we got challenged to do AT-AT Walkers today. So that's what we're doing. I'm sporting my AT-AT shirt and everything. And yes, I do call it an AT-AT. No offense to those who call it an AT-AT, but I think that's just wrong. But, that's an opinion. All right. So last week we had our Tauntaun, right? All right. So I decided we're going to stay on Hoth. We're gonna revisit there. We're gonna look at our AT-AT Walkers. All right. Hi, Evan. Thanks for joining us. And thanks again for bearing with us through the technical difficulties and joining us here. So, AT-AT Walkers are, I think, just awesome, right? They're impressive. They're epic. They're massive. They're slow. So we're gonna use some special gears and stuff for that. And we're gonna try some different versions. We have some different projects and things that we do for AT-AT Walkers in class. I'm gonna use some of that as inspiration, as starting point, and then we're gonna go from there and see what we can create. Okay. So let's see here. Let's get started. Let me show you what I've created here. All right. And hi, Wyatt and Liam and Quentin. And Liam, happy birthday. Thank you for joining us. I hope it's an awesome birthday. Awesome. So let's see here. Let's take a look at this walker that I created here. Let me shift you down here again. All right. So here's my AT-AT walker that I've got here. I'll show you in a minute here some of the inner workings, and then we'll experiment with these a little bit. Okay. So AT-ATs are slow and lumbering, the Imperial Walker. All right. So, I mean, we could make it even slower than this probably. But, all right. So, like I said, we've got a starting point, right? And this is going to teach us some things about this, and then we're gonna modify. So let me show you. Whoop, right in there. That gear is the key to all of this. Okay. So that gear right in there is our worm gear. Let me hook this back up to our battery pack so I can show you what it's doing in there. Let me see, how am I going to hold this so it's not going to try to walk on me. All right, there we go. Let's see. All right, so you can see the worm gear spinning in there, right? All right, that worm gear is a very special piece, very important piece, okay? We've talked a little bit on other weeks about gear ratios and how to make things faster or slower. We've even done some compound gearing. So gear ratios, it's all about the number of teeth that things have. So I'm gonna hold up my worm gear here and see if, take a look at it and comment maybe how many teeth you think it has, all right? So I'll show you my worm gear here. See if you can tell me how many teeth that has, right? And the teeth are the spiky parts on our regular gears here, right? So this is a 40-tooth gear, okay? We've got our 24-tooth gears that we're gonna use a bunch today as well, okay? But the worm gear is really important for making things go slow, okay? And when you go slow, you're also getting a lot of torque. Okay, so we're going to get a lot of that twisting force. It's going to make our AT-AT walkers really slow but really strong, which I think works really well for the Imperial walkers, right? So, how many teeth do you think that worm gear has? I see a guess of 6. Okay, if you count down along there, it looks like maybe it has 6. It's not 6 though. Let's see if we can get any other guesses in there. So let's see here. How do I want to start with this? Let's take away some of the extras here that are on here so that we can just get a better look at what's going on. So I took off already some of the kind of shielding that I built to go on top of my walker. Okay. And then I've got this head that I was working on this morning. All right. We'll talk about that in a minute as well. But let me take all that extra stuff off and let's just look at the nuts and bolts of this, okay? All right. So I've got my worm gear in the middle there, Okay, and I guess let's talk about that worm gear. That worm gear has only one tooth on it. Okay, only one tooth. If you follow that start of that spiral all the way down around, it just keeps going all the way around. So one tooth. Okay, and it's meshing underneath here. Let's see if you can see it meshing. Ooh, sort of. This little box is designed specifically to house our gear, our worm gear. Let me see if I have a box here. Yeah, all right. Got my worm gear box here. Okay. This is a lovely little piece here that is just designed to make our 24 tooth gear mesh really nicely in there. You can see the teeth of it mesh. Okay. So what this means is, since this is one tooth and this other one is 24 teeth, it means that this has to spin around 24 times to spin that one gear once, right? To spin that 24 tooth gear once. So that's why it's going so slow, because my motor doesn't change speeds. My motor's going the same speed, okay? But I'm slowing it way down, okay? By using that worm gear. So then let's see here. Let's take a look at what else is going on here. Okay, because we've got some other gears in there as well. So back to our walker here. When I turn this on, let's look at what's going on. Okay. So you see, I've got that center gear, that big gear, right? But then I've attached it to some other things. So I'm going to sort of deconstruct this a little bit, and we'll look at how it all goes together. I'm going to take the legs off because that'll help us. Okay. All right, here we go. No legs now. Now I've just got my center gear here that's then controlling these two smaller side gears, these 24 tooth gears, okay? And they've got this little extra piece here that just spins around, right? Do you notice how those are spinning together, and on the other side, they're spinning together? That doesn't automatically happen. So this is the first, like, super important thing for this. If you're trying to make a walking motion, something that alternates or something that moves together, it's really important to get your gears in phase. So gear phasing is one of the big components here today. So what that means is, when I put this gear in, it's not automatically in the same orientation as this other one. So if I've got my gear on my axle here and I just drop this in sort of anywhere, do those line up? Not quite, right? So it's a very special process to get these gears in phase. I need to line up exactly where my gears are oriented. Okay, now those are in the same position, right? Because otherwise, if they're out of phase and I tried to attach these with a single thing, it's not going to work, right? Because they're not going to stay the same distance apart. So they're sort of close together there, but then, whoa, now I get like, okay, they're closer together than they're farther apart, right? So my leg would just rip off there. That wouldn't work. So I'm going to get my gears back in phase here. Let's see, very important. Does that look like they're in phase? That looks good, right? Okay, so let's see here. Where'd my other piece go? This is the danger of putting things down here in front of me. All right, I lost my little connector piece on the back. That's okay, we'll get another one. All right, so let's get our other, oh, there we go. You know, it's on my computer. So let me put that back on the other side. Okay, now you'll notice that I have these ones opposite. Interesting. Let's try putting them the same and see what that does. Okay, let's put those in the same orientation on each side there and see what that does. So I'm just going to attach my legs back together, which I've got this long beam connecting them, and then down to here. These legs could have been designed anyway, but I did need a really nice stable footing for it, okay? So let's put this back on here and see what happens. All right, so I'm going to put these back. My legs are going to run into each other, aren't they? Okay. Do you want the legs to run into each other? Probably not. Okay, so let's experiment here. Let's put this, I don't know, in a different orientation. Let's point these ones up and see what that does. Okay, there we go. My legs aren't touching. All right, let's see what's going on here. I've got my gears in phase. My legs are not running into each other. Whoa. Or are they? Whoa. Okay, that looks sort of like a spider on its back or something. Okay, so what's going on? There's some crazy stuff going on here, right? The legs are running into it a little bit, and we said that worm gear has a lot of torque, so it's working really hard to spin this. The second anything like gets stuck, that worm gear is going to try to power through it, which can cause it to kind of push through and then pop when it releases. So what that's telling me is we've got just some little ends of axles sticking out too far, or little pins that are like just a hair too far. They get kind of stuck as it goes around. So if you ever have this issue with like any sort of motorized project, you know, where it goes and it kind of slows and crunches and then goes past it, that means it's just getting hung up on the slightest thing. So even sometimes just to barely loosen everything up can help solve that. So let's see if we can solve that issue by just loosening things up a little bit, making sure we got some breathing room in there. Okay, let's try that again. Let's see. Interesting. Okay, so now I have these legs pointing down while these ones are pointing forward. So what happens is I get sort of two steps in quick succession, and then the other one takes a while. Step, step, oh, step, step, wait, step, step, wait. Right, but it works. But if you want them to really just like kind of lumber at the same rate, you gotta just have these facing the opposite direction of this other side. So I'm going to reattach this. Okay, so this is one method for our AT-AT, right? There we go. I'm still seeing a little catch maybe on it towards the end, so there might be something that's just rubbing a tiny bit, but that looks pretty good, right? Okay, so that's one way to do this. You know, the other way we could have done it is similar to the walker we did last time, where each one has its own gear that it's sort of going off of. I wanted to try something different too. So I was experimenting with some different kinds of movement here. So I'm going to show you this next one that I'm working on. It's not complete. And it maybe even it isn't correct for the motion of an AT-AT, but I was just experimenting with different types of walking motions. And I wanted to get some more of the kind of joint look or like forward backward of it instead of just sort of up and down at a very regular sort of motion. So I'm using a similar method here. I've got that worm gear connected to the center, right? Then powering two gears, okay? And same thing over here. It's powering all of those. But now I have this little sort of cam attached to here. And let me show you what this is doing, because I think this is a really interesting movement. And let's see again if I can keep my fingers out of the way of this. All right, so I've got my four legs attached there. I don't have all the extras, right? I'd have to build up around this to really make it into an AT-AT. But let's see what it's doing here. Okay, do you see how each individual leg is sort of stepping on its own, right? I think that approaches more of the look of an AT-AT, because they don't just kind of have alternating legs. Exactly, they're lifting things up, they're churning, they're doing all sorts of things. Sarah, you like my shirt? Thank you. I like this shirt too. It's very fitting for today. All right, so yeah, this kind of gives a really interesting look to this walker, right? Where they're going in at different times. They're a little bit more organic movement, which I think the AT-ATs have. However, let's see what happens when I put this down on the ground and see if we can get this to walk. Okay, it's doing something. It's trying, right? Oh, this leg got kind of jammed up towards the front. Let's see. That's definitely not an AT-AT movement. Now, what's happening is it's dragging along the ground because I don't have anything to hold these legs in place. So these ones are just sort of swinging around, right? Take a look at what I did up here on the front. In order to hold this piece in place as I move it, watch what's going to happen. I'll show you close up on each of these, and then we can figure out how to solve this on the back. So on the front, let's see here, how to hold it. Okay, so that black piece, right, is attached around the outside of the gear. So as the gear goes around, it moves my leg forward and back. But then what makes it go up is you see right up there, there's a little pin sticking out that's just resting on, right? It's just sort of moving back and forth over it. And as that piece goes down to the bottom, it lifts the leg up because it's still sort of hinging over that. It's kind of like that's the fulcrum of my lever, and I'm changing the position of that fulcrum as I go. Okay. But then I've got this piece on top to hold it in, right? Because when this is walking, it's going to try to push it up. So now it's going to rest up against this. So I need to figure out a way to do the same thing back here, but my motor is in the way. I can't add a little holy beam there with a pin sticking out because my motor is in the way. So I'm going to try, I think, to build something across and down to hold this piece in. So let's see if we can do that. Okay. So one of the things that's handy about this worm gear box, we have them sort of upside down, but I at least have a little building platform there on that. So I'm going to put a couple of little plates on top of there just to get above my motor, okay? And then I can find something that's going to reach back and allow me to build sort of down to hold this in place. We're going to see if this has worked. I haven't fully done this, so I don't know if it's actually going to walk, but we'll see. So I need to get something back there that's far enough out to cover those up. Okay, so I need a wider plate. Let's try this one. Okay, so this plate nicely, fully covers that, all right? It kind of gives me a cool building platform too to cover up and build the frame of my AT-AT. Okay, but I now need to build something down from here to hold this black piece in on this side. Okay, just like we have this pin holding it in up here, I need to build down and secure that on this side. So let's see here. I'm gonna use maybe some of these flat tiles on top of a brick to see if I can get this in place down to hold that in. Maybe. Okay, so I'm trying to fit this in here to hold that black piece in place. Let's see if we can do this. Do it on this side. Okay. And see if we can do it on this other side too. Okay, all right. So now I've built this down and now it's holding that in place, right? So it's not stopping it from moving, it's just stopping it from swinging too far up, right? Because then my leg clearly won't work, right? I need this to be able to stay in touch, in contact with the ground. So let me see here. I'm going to add this on and just do a little reinforcing here. Okay, reinforce this side. And you know what? I might scoot them back a little. Let's see. Let's see if I can scoot them back one. Okay. And then I'm just going to reinforce it over the top. Let's see what happens here. Okay, so I've got those in place that in theory are going to keep this this little cam piece in place. All right, let's try. Let's see what this does. Oh, it's a little too close to that gear, isn't it? Okay, but I think it would do what I want it to. So maybe if I just raise this up just slightly. So maybe instead of using a couple of these plates, I'm going to just use a regular brick. If I had a regular brick. Oh, there we go. Okay, so there's brick. I'm going to use that on top of my worm gear box and then reposition this. And let's see if that is going to do what we need it to. Okay, so that clears my gear now. All right, we'll see if that's close enough to hold in my cam piece. It might not be. There might be too much space in there. But let's test this out. Let's see if it is going to do any sort of walking. Whoa. Okay, this is a crazy one. And I haven't phased my gears on this one either. Remember, that was super important, right? To try to get our gears in phase. So let's see what this does. Okay. What do we think? It's pretty slow. It wobbles a lot, right? Because I've got a pretty big range of motion with that cam rotating up and down. All right, we're going to try one more thing. To try to minimize that movement just a little bit, right now I've got all of these attached on one of these outside holes on this gear. I'm going to move them to the inside. Okay, so I'm not going to get as big of steps, but I'm also going to not wobble as much, right? Because they're going to be more concentrated. So it should still raise up and down, but I'm just moving those in. And I could also experiment with properly phasing my gears more, but I kind of wanted some of the random motion of this one. I didn't want it to walk as smoothly as that first one we built. Okay, so let's see here. I've got things sort of opposite placement on each side so that I can get some of that motion. Let's see what this last adjustment does here. Okay. All right. Here we go. Let's try to walk in here. So now I'm not getting quite enough. It's moving forward little by little, but it's not really lifting the legs up. Right? Oh, you know what? I got one more idea to try. It's not lifting the legs up because I think there's too much wiggle room in here. Let's try one last modification, which is going to be to remove one of the spacers here between my pins and see if that allows these legs to actually lift off the ground. Okay. Let's see, because it might hold it in a little tighter position. I'm not going to worry about the back just yet. Let's see what this did for the front. Okay, let's see. Watch this leg. Oh, you see that? It lifted off the ground just a little bit. Okay, but my back legs are just dragging because they don't have that tight fitting piece to hold it. Okay, so we're just about out of time here, but I just want to show you this. All right, because now I've held these nice and close together, far enough that it's able to move within there. It's not going to get stuck on it, right? Let me turn this on here. So watch what happens as this goes back and forth, right? It still moves up and down because it changes what position it's in on the gear here, and it's resting on that little pin, but this other pin holds it in, so when I'm walking, it doesn't push up. Back here, look how much space there is, right? So when I'm walking, this pushes up against there. So it just drags on the ground because I don't have anything providing resistance for it. Okay. I love this. I love just experimenting, right? And I hope you do too, because that's what engineers do. I love this. You know, when we have an idea, we just kind of run with it and see what we can do with it. And then you learn from that, right? So I have never tried this type of movement until today, where we've got some sort of cam just sort of resting on something. And we figured out how we needed to hold it down so that the legs would actually lift up, right? But there's just all these little things. Everything kind of builds on itself, which is just, I think, awesome, because it gives you more and more to tinker with, right? I haven't added on any of the decoration to this one. I can turn it into my actual AT-AT, right? I didn't even get to talk about the joint that I used on my head to make it swivel around. It's a really sweet ball and socket joint. Maybe we'll talk about those some other day too. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. I had a lot of fun trying to create a couple different methods, couple different models of AT-AT, okay? And I challenge you to see what you can come up with, right? And sometimes it's fun even not to make it motorized, just to make like a cool detailed version of your AT-AT, right? Whatever you come up with, share it with us. We love seeing what you build. Share it using #PlayWellAtHome. And Ben will be back tomorrow with some more treehouse madness. So make sure to join him and see what he's going to add to his treehouse. And we'll see you guys all next time. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.